So we talked about perfect square trinomials in the last section, and we had a rule that said if you have a plus b squared, then that's going to equal a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And now what we're going to do for factoring is we're going to see if it fits this pattern, and if it does, then we can go back to that for the factoring, okay? All right, so that's the idea here. So if it's a perfect square trinomial, first of all, the first term has to be a perfect square, and it is. In fact, it's 5x squared, right? The last number, the constant, has to be a perfect square. And it is, it's 2 squared. So like this is your A and this is your B. And what you want to know is that middle term 2AB? So is that middle term, in our case, 2 times 5x, because that was my A, times 2, because that was my B. Does that equal the middle term? Well, 2 times 5 is 10, 10 times 2 is 20. Yes. So this is a perfect square trinomial. It's a perfect square trinomial. So how does it factor? Then it factors into a plus b squared. So what's my a and what's my b? My a was 5x and my b was 2. So that's how it factors. Now you might be saying, just assume use that grouping thing, you know. Yeah, you can do that. That would have worked. The numbers aren't super large. If the numbers are really big and you've got perfect squares, then I would say, you know, maybe take the time to see if it's a perfect square trinomial. Another way to do it, like if you're pretty sure it's a perfect square trinomial, you could say 25x squared plus, and then just take the middle term and split it in half. If you think it's a perfect square trinomial. Now, it doesn't have to work, but if you did that with the grouping, it would work. You'd have a 5x here, and you'd get 5x plus 2, and then you'd have the common factor would be 2, and you'd have 5x plus 2, and then the parentheses would be the same, so you'd have 5x plus 2 times 5x, because this is the 5x plus 2. See, it would all work out the same. It's a little more writing, maybe. Okay, and you might have a question, well, could I leave it this way? Do I have to do it with a little square? I don't really care. The book might care, but sometimes it's nice to have them written out separately. Sometimes it's nice to use the square. Okay, so I'll give you another example. 49x squared plus 9. Now notice that this is subtraction in the middle, but that's okay. All right, 49x squared, that's a perfect square. That's 7x squared. And then the back term, 9, that's a perfect square, right? 3 squared. So this is like my A and this is like my B. So the question is the middle term 42x? Now don't forget there's a minus sign in there, but let's just look at it. It's got to be 2 times A times B. 2 times 7x times 3. Well, 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 7 is 42x. Yeah. Where does that minus sign come in? Well, what it's going to be is it's going to be A minus B squared this time. And so it's going to be, for us, the answer is going to be 7x minus 3 squared, like that. Now, you might like that, and that's fine and good. Maybe you're like, I'd rather see it that other way she did. Okay, well, if you were to do it with, we already know it's a perfect square trinomial, but let's say you wanted to do grouping, you would split it into negative 21x and negative 21x. That would make the negative 42x. Okay. We haven't done one with the negatives like that, so I wanted to do that as an example. Split it in the middle. Now, what do they have in common? 7x. But now notice this is a subtraction sign. That means you're going to have to take out a negative common factor. Now, what do 21x and 9 have in common? 3. Notice that changed, that plus 9 changed to a minus 3. Now, why is that? Well, negative 3 times 7x, that's the negative 21x. And negative 3 times negative 3, that's the positive 9. Okay, but good news, the parentheses are the same. So you get 7x minus 3 times, and then this one is 7x minus 3, but we kind of knew that was going to happen. We already knew it was a perfect square trinomial. And so you get that, which is the same thing as that. Now, you might be asking, well, what if that didn't work? What if my parentheses didn't come out the same? Then it wasn't a perfect square trinomial. Okay, you might still be able to factor it, but it wasn't a perfect square trinomial. All right, good luck with those. They're fun.